Good afternoon, Trinitonians. Welcome to the Learning Together live webinar series as part of a lifelong learning initiatives presented by Trinity University's Office of Alumni Relations. I'm James Hill from the class of 1976, and I'm proud to be the public address voice of the Trinity Tigers here at Trinity University. The Alumni Office has invited me to introduce the panelists of this webinar titled Tales from the Court, Trinity Women's Tennis, Yesterday and Today. In the middle, it's an honor to introduce Gretchen Rush, class of 1986, and the head coach of the Trinity Women's Tennis team. Gretchen is accompanied by Shirley Rushing, a retired professor of health and physical education, I might add dance instructor extraordinaire, and right beside me is Emily Burrer Foster, the class of 1969 and longtime coach of the Tigers. While competing for the Tigers, Gretchen was a four-time All-American. She won the NCAA Division I Doubles Championship in 1983 with Louise Allen. Now, as a pro, she was ranked as high as
James, nobody cares.
Nobody cares?
No. We're going to get started.
Well, okay. You know, she was a quarterfinalist at Wimbledon, U.S. Open.
You taught me how to
French
coach.
Open.
James,
okay.
that's enough.
All right. Let me talk about Shirley Rushing.
Okay.
There you go.
Yes.
Shirley was a faculty sponsor of Trinity Women's Tennis from 1965 to 1974. The Tigers won 5 USTA Collegiate Championships in 68, 69, 73, 75, and 76. The championship coaches were John Newman in 73 and 75 and the late Marilyn Montgomery Reinfuss in 1976. Now, Emily here won the USTA.
That's enough.
Well, okay, all right.
That's enough.
Anyway,
Cut it short.
she
There
was
you
a
go.
coach, and she even coached Gretchen Rush.
Yes, not very well.
Especially how to poach on the court.
And completely uncoachable.
I did my
Uncoachable.
best.
She did her best. Well, we need you good folks to know that you'll be able to submit your questions using the Q&A tab. Miss Rush, if you please.
Thank you, James. James, thank you for being here. It is not a Trinity event without James Hill in the voice of James Hill. We are so grateful for you to be here to help keep us in track. And if anyone swears, you are the referee, and you're going to keep us on time.
I will.
So I'm very thrilled to be here. Thank you all for tuning in. And this is Shirley Rushing, who I know, had she not been my advisor and said it's okay to take kinesiology twice, Gretchen, from Dr. McClay. Make sure you learn it. You're going to need it.
She was my advisor too, and I'd probably still not be in school.
I would not have graduated, and that is for sure, because I know I had a D- in dance for children, and we were leaving for the NCAAs, and I think she let me
If you
slide.
want to make Shirley laugh, just ask her about my dance class.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
her class.
We're not here to talk about dance. We're here to talk about tennis.
It's all about tennis. But anyway, I know I would not be here sitting on this couch had it not been for Emily, who recruited me away from Stanford, and Shirley, who helped me graduate. I was going to be a doctor when I grew up and play pro tennis and have a family and then coach at Penn State. And here I am back at Trinity. I would never have thought I'd be sitting here. So thank you for all your contributions to just my life. And we want to talk about the contributions
You know what,
you
Gretchen?
made to tennis.
You know, it's amazing, Gretchen, that you bring that up about coming back, because you look at everybody who's coached here, and everybody who's coached here has graduated from here.
Right. And I think that says a lot about our administration and our
Absolutely.
school, because we
Absolutely.
want to come back. I mean,
Yep.
we love it here. And I hope you alumni out there are going to come back to Alumni Weekend. We have some special people getting into that October 5th. So alumni. And one of my many bosses here at Trinity, Bob King, is very fond of hiring alumni, because we love calling our friends and asking them for money.
Sure, absolutely.
Just say hello.
That's a good
As we
thing.
travel around, we just say hello, and I'm calling in my best friends. So I'm grateful to be here today. I would not be here without these beautiful women. So today our topic is women's tennis. We have 150 years to cover. And first of all, we need to start with this slide. And no, my friends back home, this is not a Gretchen snafu. It is a blank slate. We are starting from absolute scratch. There was no tennis as we started here at Trinity, and that was mostly because we were in a place called, James?
Tawakana.
And when I travel around, people always say, is Trinity that Christian school in Texas, and why is it called Trinity? And yes, Trinity does have Christian roots, and if you really want the Trinity history, you need to listen to Angela and Doug's 150 Years of Trinity webinar. You will get it all straight. There is definitely some facts in here with my my history, but I love this map because it shows you where the 3 campuses were, and now we've been here on San Antonio since 1942. But I love these pictures that Doug dug up from the archives, that in the early 1800s they took the students out into the middle of nowhere so they would be free from the vices that were abounding in the countryside, in the countries, in the towns. So there was no drinking, no pool halls, and that was in the syllabus that they tried to get people.
How did their students survive?
I don't know, but they did, and evidently the schools were hard, it was really rugged. They had to go in a buggy and wagon to get to that, however you say that place. And so now we go to Waxahachie.
Waxahachie.
Thank you, James. Okay. Hard to say, but it's a fun place to stay. And I love these pictures too. These are my favorite pictures probably that Doug found for us. This is the earliest athletics that we had here at Trinity, and these are from the early 1900s. We had our first football team, and then our first women's basketball team in 1905, and I have to say this is one of my favorite pictures, 1908. These women were ready to serve, and I'm not quite sure what that logo means, but I like it. Their marketing was terrific. They were selling something there. So as we go through tennis at Trinity, I kept finding all these pictures from the early, from that 1908 all the way through the 50s, and I started learning through Doug and my conversations with Shirley and Sarah Mayo and Nancy Spencer about these tennis teams that we had. And with the tricky part of, there's a lot of terminology and there's lots of vowels. There's AIAW and TIAW, and there's a lot of W's. So
the first one, Gretchen, was called TRFCW, and it was the Texas Recreation Federation for Competitive Sports for Women.
Man.
Right.
That's what it was called, and yeah.
Well, that's an interesting word you brought up, competitive, because when Doug and I were talking about this, it was saying the AIAW really wasn't about competition. It was about giving women an opportunity for education and friendship. And I mean, I don't think we were that friendly with Stanford when we got
It was about nice competition.
Play nice.
Yes,
Play nice.
Play nice.
Play nice.
Well, things have changed, have they not? So we're
yes.
talking about pre-Title IX. So these early tennis teams, and I'm putting teams in quotations, they were part of this recreational association. We had players that played other teams because we found articles in the San Antonio Light and the Trinitonian in our yearbooks about the Trinity tennis team. They played in tournaments, they played in play dates up at Baylor, which Shirley will tell us about, and we would call these extramural. Women weren't actually, at these early pictures that you'll find, there wasn't intramurals for women. So it was pretty confusing at first, but it's really kind of fun to dig through some of this stuff. And I love this picture. This was actually sent to me by Betty Jameson, who is in this picture. Yep. And do you remember Betty? Mm-hmm. I think it's from 1960. I can't see that far.
About 60, actually.
Yeah, actually it says 57.
57.
Yeah. But I don't have my glasses. But anyway, and that has a woman that you know right in the middle. Can you tell us just a little bit about her?
I didn't realize she was at Trinity until Gretchen sent me this picture. Her name is Ruth Cady, and she coached the women's and the men's team when she was here. And then she went on to a career in physical education, primarily in health education, and made a real name for herself. But I was surprised about 2 or 3 weeks ago when Gretchen sent me this picture and identified who the coach was in the 50s.
And this was because Betty sent it to me. So thank you, Betty, for helping me understand what went on at Trinity before Title IX and before scholarships and before we became this tennis powerhouse.
I think the Recreation Association was the advent of the club sport, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
That
Jim
is
Potter
currently
and
going on, yeah.
Kristen Harrison and
Yeah.
all those wonderful people that help keep our students here healthy and get love of taking care of your bodies and having fun. And this was, I believe this one was in the Trinitonian, and I loved it, called Top Players of Our Women's Tennis Team. This is 1956, so they obviously look like a team to me. And I love these blazers. I mean, look at that emblem. I think we should bring these back.
Now, Marilyn Montgomery, of course, was Marilyn Reinfuss later and coached the team too. So.
That's awesome.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Excuse
no,
me.
please interrupt. That's
Okay.
called the poaching thing,
That
right?
poaching thing,
I love
yes.
a lot of poaching. It makes doubles lots more fun. So I am so pleased, Shirley. One, we had a wonderful conversation about Trinity, and I just have this opportunity to thank you for what you did for Trinity. And one of the main things I want to talk about today are these sort of unsung heroes that without Shirley, without some of these tennis angels that somehow found money to take our tennis teams, there's angels. It was just there's a lot of ways that this could have gone in a different direction where we wouldn't be sitting here today with national championships, with conference championships, our current teams traveling to wonderful places to play tennis and carrying on the Trinity name. So Shirley, can you tell us a little bit how you got to Baylor, starting your academic career on a basketball scholarship? Everyone remembers Shirley as the dance, as James called her, dance extraordinaire, but you started your roots in basketball and had a master's degree by you were 22 years old. That sounds very accomplished.
Well, I played high school basketball for 4 years, and then when I went to junior college in Mississippi, discovered that they had competitive basketball for women organized through all the junior colleges in Mississippi, and we were on a scholarship. Actually, we were on a half scholarship. Men were on full scholarships, and women were on half scholarships, and then we worked the other half of the scholarship.
So what I think is fascinating, Shirley, excuse me for interrupting, and I did learn to poach, and I'm an active listener. I am listening to you, but I find this really interesting because, you know, being from the north and from Pittsburgh, like I wouldn't think in the 1950s that they were having basketball scholarship for women. So I think this is crucial for our history here at Trinity, that we had a woman that had been on scholarship in the 50s, went on to Baylor, which was also a leader in women's sports.
Right.
And then you came here. So could you
Right.
just tell us a little bit about Baylor? How you got to Baylor
Okay.
at 22 years old.
Yes, I was 22 and had just completed a master's, and in fact, they employed me sight unseen. In those days, we didn't have all the paperwork we have today. The chair of the department would call the chair of your department and say, "Can you recommend somebody to me?" And this is the way many people were employed at that time, and that's the way I was employed. So I met my department chair the night before the initial meeting the next day, and had 3 wonderful years at Baylor before coming to Trinity. We had a person at Baylor by the name of Olga Fallen, who was very instrumental in promoting women's athletics of all kinds at Baylor. They had play days, they had Baylor Olympics, where all of the schools, University of Texas, San Marcos, Sam Houston, the schools from Texas came and competed in all different sports, just like the Olympics. Points were accumulated and trophies were given at the end of the day.
Well, Olga is going to come back into our Trinity story.
Right.
And you're wondering why I think Olga is very important.
Okay.
And I think what's important to remember is what's happened at Trinity, what was happening at Baylor, what was happening at Mississippi Southern. There's women all over the country
Right.
in the 50s and 60s. You know, they didn't win national championships. They weren't coaches of the year, but they were, and then this Miss Katie that was taking our men's and women's tennis teams in the 50s, they were women that are sort of unheralded, right?
Right.
And had they not laid the groundwork, you know, there wouldn't be Glada at Southwestern for 30 years as the athletic director and, you know, basically leading athletics at that university.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
anyway, there's all these little pieces to the puzzle, and
Right.
Olga becomes a piece. So
Yes.
fast forward to Trinity, you're here, and what's a typical day? And Shirley Rushing's you're 25 years old, and you're the only woman faculty member here. What was a typical day? What time would you get here? What'd your car look like? How many things did you pack in that car of yours? You remember this car, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Packed many tennis players in it. But a typical day when I first started, there was on the wall of the office a picture of a gymnasium, and that's really all we had. The newspaper clipping was yellow, which told me the clipping had been there for some time. And we had no gymnasium.
Uh-oh.
We had we had a slab and we had a pool. A student had just donated a pool. So we had a swimming pool, we had a slab. We had classes at Trinity Baptist Church gym, and we had classes on the slab. I came every day with a suitcase with
That's before the roller suitcases too.
oh
wasn't
yes,
it?
this was when you carried them. But I brought a bathing suit, I brought shorts and shirt, I brought a leotard for modern dance. We had a pool. We did not have a space of our own. The third floor of the science building was empty because they didn't have enough money to equip it at that time. And so I taught dance classes on the third floor of the science building. We taught gymnastics at Trinity Baptist Church gymnasium. We taught classes on the slab and on a grass area.
Well, it's just amazing to me that you came here and became the only faculty member. And because you were the only woman faculty member, something happened here that I think is crucial to the Trinity story, and it's a young woman named Sally Belton. So could you tell us that story of Sally coming to you and saying, Miss Rushing, I want to play in a tennis tournament. Could you tell us that story?
All right. From 60 to 65, there were no women's athletics of any kind. In 1965, a student by the name of Sally Goldschmeding came into the office and told me she wanted to play in a tennis tournament, but you could only play if you were representing a university. And could she say she's representing Trinity?
Thank goodness she asked that question.
Yes.
I thought about it for about 10 or 15 seconds, and I thought, well, she's a full-time student at Trinity. I don't know why anybody would object. So I said yes.
Shirley, did you ever think maybe you should ask like an administrator or somebody?
No.
Again, here we are at a crossroads. Had Shirley gone to the president and said, I've got this young lady named Sally, or she'd gone to Dean Grissom, I mean, we could have been X'd right there, and there's no Emily Foster, Gretchen, Annie Wise, all of our young, the Zoe Caffin twins, all these kids.
So the Sally story was very interesting. That really was the last I saw of Sally. But she went to the tennis tournament. The tennis tournament was at Belton. Between the time I saw her and the time she went to Belton, Dean Grissom called her and asked her to ride on the float, the Trinity float, for I think it was the Fiesta Parade because it was in the spring. And Sally said, no thank you, I'm going to play in a tennis tournament. And so Dean Grissom didn't quite understand that, but a few days later she called back and gave Sally a second chance to ride on the Trinity float. And Sally said, no, I'm going to play in this
So
tournament.
do you know how many people have said no to Dean Grissom over the years?
This is the only one I know.
I've never said no to her.
Yes,
Did you ever
ma'am,
say
yes,
no to
ma'am.
her?
No.
She wasn't Dean when I was.
So Sally got herself to Belton. She went on the bus. She didn't have a car. She took a cab to the bus station. She called a cab, told them to show up at the dormitory, but do not come in the driveway. Stay on the street. At 7 o'clock, she would come out. And they certainly do not honk the horn because we don't want to wake people up. She didn't know when she went out that door whether or not the alarm would go off. So she was nervous about that, but she ran to the cab. The cab took her to the bus station. She took the bus to Belton, which took her slightly over 8 hours.
Wow.
She left at 8 o'clock, got there after 4:30, and somehow got to the courts and played in the
Represented Trinity University.
represented Trinity University the next day in the
Yeah.
tennis tournament.
Wow.
So that was 1965.
Well, and it's
Wow.
interesting because, you know, we see these pictures of these tennis teams and we think we've got these intercollegiate things going on, but it was under this auspice of whatever those vowels you use, the Recreation Association. and
It went through many, many names.
yeah, transitions.
But then at the end of this was 65. Then at the end of 65, I was attending a convention, and at this time ran into Olga Fallen
Olga, another trailblazer that we don't know about.
from Baylor, who said to me, "We are organizing the state of Texas into districts, and we will be hosting a tennis tournament in the spring, and you will come and bring a team.
You will.
You
You
will
will.
come and bring a team." And I said, "Oh, really?" And she said, "Yes, we know Trinity's men's tennis is just formidable. They're bound to have women tennis players." And so I came back, and we had a couple of very good players in our majors program. They had tennis and intramurals. And so I asked the students if they were interested in this, and yes, they were. I took a team to compete, and I don't remember how many people, probably 4.
Do you remember any of their names?
I remember Barbara Knoll was a physical education major.
Okay.
I remember Dorothy Dowling, another
Okay.
major. There were 2 girls who had just won, I think they represented Chi Betas, and they had just won intramurals. And so I know I took those 4 girls, and I called Dorothy to ask her if she remembered any other people going or what she remembered, and she said the only thing she remembered was pushing my car.
So that means your car did not quite make it up to
that means
the Waco.
somewhere along the way my car broke down.
But you made it.
we
Again,
made
another
it.
crossroads. That could have been the end of us.
We made it. We made it. And our doubles team got to the finals. They came in second. And the reason I remember this was a couple of weeks later, Olga called me and said the team that won the district could not go to the state championship. And would our team be interested in going?
Thank you, Olga.
Thank you, Olga. I don't even remember where it was, but I asked them if they could go, and one of them had a car,
Right.
and they went.
Thank goodness.
Just the 2 of them. They not only went, but they won the state championship.
Excellent.
So in 1966, we won the state championship.
And again, that's another sort of, Sally going to Belton, Olga saying, "Hey, Shirley, get those girls at wherever they need to get," and you
Yes.
got them there.
We got them
Right.
there.
So thank you for getting them there.
At that point, we of course had no money. The first money I was able to solicit was from the student activity fees, and I think they gave us gas money and entry money for the district tournament at Baylor. In that was '66. In '67, we continued dual matches with people like San Marcos and Baylor, Incarnate Word, San Antonio College, anybody who had a team who was close.
Right.
And it didn't take much gas to get there.
So would you call these, would these be under an auspice of one of these?
This was, at this time, it was under the auspices of TCIAW,
TCIAW.
Texas Commission on Intercollegiate
TCIAW.
Athletics for
Okay.
Women, which
Changed.
was
That changed shortly after.
Yeah.
It was a subset of AIAW, which
Okay.
was the American.
But that's the Play Nice League.
Yes, yes, that's play nicely, and we don't want scholarships
Right, no
because we
scholarships.
don't want to get into the same kind of trouble the men
Right,
get into
right.
with their scholarships.
Well, that brings us sort of to Emily's era.
Oh, wait,
you got done yet?
back up.
Oh, you got- okay.
67.
Okay.
We have Mary McLean.
Oh, wow, thank you. For
Mary
mentioning
McLean was a super tennis player who was textbook perfect in form. We didn't have videos at that time in teaching the classes, so we used Mary as Mary was the demonstrator.
So that's why the tennis blew up in the 70s, because of Mary McLean.
And so Mary that year won the state championship
Wow.
with the district, the organization under TCIAW.
Wow, cool.
So that gets us through 67 when Emily and Becky come on the scene.
Woohoo!
Whoa,
That is
baby.
such a story, and I hope I hope that you know how important all those people are. And I heard when Glada was coached by Mary too in high school. I don't know how that happened. Mary was her coach in high school. So
Well,
She
I
was a
don't know.
coach
Well,
at Roosevelt High School.
Roosevelt High
Oh,
School.
oh,
so
yeah.
there's all these pieces.
Oh, you remember that?
which
Okay,
is
we're
another
getting
story
inside.
we won't go
All
into.
right. So Doug Breckenridge, I keep mentioning Doug. Doug found this, and this. I think this was in the San Antonio Light, and it says Trinity has a unique problem, and that was Emily and Becky. Do you want to talk about your unique? Do you think you're a unique problem?
Well, I've always been a problem. I can't really speak for Becky, but back then it was a unique problem. When Becky and I came, I didn't know Becky was coming, actually. And so I arrived on campus. I go talk to Shirley as my advisor, and Shirley goes, "Oh, there's this other girl, Becky Vest, on campus, and you might want to get together." So Becky and I got together, and I had known Becky from the juniors a little bit, so that wasn't an issue from the national competition in the junior level. So we got together and we decided we would go and talk to the men's coach, because we didn't have a coach. We needed a coach, but we didn't have one. Shirley offered to be like the sponsor to make sure we got into tournaments and whatever. And so we went to the coach and we said, would it be okay if we worked out with the men's team? And he said, of course, come on. So we did everything the men did at practice.
And that was Clarence.
That was Clarence.
Right.
And then that went on for whatever, and Becky and I went through the challenge matches and the yada.
So you were
yada.
basically a part of the men's tennis team in the 1968.
Well, we practiced with them. We were
Right.
we were
But
like
he'd say,
hitting
hey,
partners.
go play with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then one day we showed up at the courts, and Clarence met us, and he said, you can't come to practice here anymore. And at that time, there were only 4 courts
Yeah,
on
okay.
campus. At the uppers, the slab was just the place where you go to drink beer and have barbecue.
No, she was teaching
Concrete.
classes over there.
Concrete.
Yeah, but they turned it into tennis courts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Eventually.
Eventually, yeah. But when I first came, it wasn't.
was
And
the party
then
place.
we hosted the 1968 men's NCAA championships, and that's when they built the lower courts, and that's
Okay.
when the slab became actual tennis courts.
Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't realize
that you
that.
could play on.
That's cool.
Yeah, and not just go drink beer on.
May I insert a comment here?
Are you poaching back?
I'm poaching back.
Okay, what?
It's from Nancy Webster to all the
Oh,
panelists.
very cool.
I want to give my best to 3 influential ladies in my life. Thank all of you for your positive impact in my life. I'm still playing tennis and competing frequently, and I still waltz and foxtrot regularly. My son just finished his freshman year at Trinity. Best
Whoa.
wishes to all of you from Nancy Webster in Corpus Christi. Nancy, this is the nicest.
Yes,
Hello,
Nancy.
sweet James. I
Yes.
love that.
Oh,
Thank
Nancy,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you, Nancy.
That's awesome.
You are better come back October 5th. We've got some special events coming up. Please come back and play tennis with us. We still love to play.
Absolutely.
So back, you remember where you were?
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
you're not allowed
okay.
to practice with the
so
guys
we weren't
anymore.
allowed to practice, so we had to go somewhere else to practice. Well, at that particular time, McFarland was being renovated.
Okay.
Okay, so that wasn't available. It was still San Pedro Tennis Center at that time. And so there was really no place for us to play. And so we had to get time on the upper courts when the men weren't practicing.
Which was never, because
Yeah.
I mean, if you read about Dick Stockton,
I know, they were out there all the
practicing
time.
all the time. I don't
Yeah,
think they
but
went to
but-
class.
But if they weren't having official practice, then there was usually a court
Okay.
that we could get on.
And it was just the two of you.
Yes.
You and Becky,
Yes.
this we're talking about. Okay.
Yes, and then I got to a point because we didn't have a car, and I lived at home. At that time, it's not like it is now with you, Gretchen, where you have to live on campus, which I think
Right.
is wonderful.
It is good for the students.
And so I lived at home, and I had to get up. Classes then started at 7:30 in the morning, not 8 o'clock. And so I had to get up early, catch a bus, go downtown, take a transfer in order to get here by my 7:30 class. And then I'd go to class all day. And then I would work as a lifeguard or work with Jim Potter in the intramurals or whatever.
You work for Potter?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Are you
Hear that, Potter?
Are you going to send me a sympathy card?
Yeah.
No, I loved
Yeah.
Jim Potter. He was awesome. And then after the swimming pool closed at 9 o'clock, I'd go to the library and study until it closed, and then I'd catch another bus and go back downtown and then back
So
out.
where was time to practice?
There wasn't time.
Right.
Practice happened at lunch. I had an hour for lunch, so I would bring 2 sandwiches, one for lunch and one for dinner. And I would go in the racquetball courts and just hit against the racquetball
And I
wall.
put I put that picture of you in the racquetball court because I just think that's hysterical.
I spent all my time in the racquetball
Well, the
court. That's
hairdo,
where
I love the
practiced.
hairdo, but I mean, you're in the racquetball courts, and that's literally the only picture I could find of you my first 4 years until I connected with Doug.
And that's a
All we-
blessing
that-
to us all.
But literally, all the pictures we had was Emily in the racquetball court, and now we know Shirley why. Because
Well, I
that's the only
spent all
place
my
she could
time there.
practice.
Well,
I
and,
was there all the time.
and we also didn't
Yeah.
have cameras. We
No,
didn't,
you're
we
right.
didn't go around making pictures all the
No,
time.
we
It's a
didn't.
different- that's
That-
definitely
that's
different
true.
world.
That's true. The brownies didn't quite get
No.
the action
Well,
photos.
is there anything you want to tell us about your experience at the Nationals? I mean, because it really
Well, it
is
was different.
It really is a turning point for Trinity Tennis. Yes, we won the state championships with your gals, but you two winning in '68 and '69 back to back. That kind of they won.
Well,
What wasn't called the Nationals? What would have been called then the AIAW?
It was called, it was
USTA.
USLTA.
Yeah.
It was the U.S. Lawn Tennis Association.
Right.
And a lady named Pat Yeomans in
Remember her?
California
Sure, of course.
started it. She went to the USLTA and said, we need a competition for women. The men have the NCAAs and we need something for the women's. And so the USLTA agreed to start a women's collegiate championship. And so they had what was called the Trash Bowl. It was a silver,
Where
beautiful
is that
silver.
thing? We want that.
Now, the Silver Bowl, I donated it to the Intercollegiate
Very
National
cool.
Intercollegiate Tennis Hall of Fame.
Very
yeah,
cool.
And so anyway, because if you won it twice, you got to retire the trophy. So
I'll get it back.
yeah,
I know Betsy Nagelson.
Betsy won't give it back. I know she won't give it back. But the experience was you had a team of 4 players, and you would go, and it was a 64 draw, and you would play just a regular tournament. And you would get points for each round that you won until a winner was declared. And whatever college or university you represented, they got the points. And at the end, they added up the points from the singles competition and the doubles competition to see who the team champion was. Well, I won the singles, and Becky got to the quarters, I think. Right? Quarters, I
semis
think.
or
Yeah,
something,
quarters
I
or
can't remember.
semis. And then we won the doubles 2 years, so we won the national championship, the team championship 2 years.
But we actually did not have a tennis team, Emily, according to
Okay,
this
okay.
article.
Now wait,
Yeah.
the second year.
The second year we had a team. Yes. And
Because we have pictures. I think
Yeah.
that's the picture right there below that.
yeah, there was Betty Meadows and Debbie Darby. Debbie Darby, right?
Debbie Darby and Susie Schulte.
Susie Schulte and myself and Becky
Well, I
Betts.
think that's a perfect segue.
Well, may I do a segue? Do y'all remember?
It's called poaching in
Poaching,
tennis. No
okay.
segue.
Get
Do
it
you
right.
ladies remember Kathy Evans?
No.
Kathy Evans Geib. Hello, you all. This is Kathy Evans. I was in that group in the yearbook, but didn't make the pictures because I believe I was student teaching. I, of course, remember Becky and Emily as the awesome players. Our little team did play Texas at the lower courts that I participated in. I think I played a couple of times, but student teaching kept me some. Thanks for doing this webinar. It really brings back interesting memories. Thank you, Kathy Evans Geib.
Wow,
Thank
is
you,
she,
Kathy.
Is she in that picture or no?
Well, no, because
Kathy,
she-
send us a picture. I
Yes.
want to put it up on the
Put it
wall.
up on the wall.
Yeah, I like the
Okay.
wall. So we could talk about that all day. I find that whole story fascinating, and we could delve into that the rest of the day, but I want to keep going because the next most important thing to me, another crossroads, is this little tiny fire plug named Sarah Scott. And she came to Trinity because Emily, I don't know if you all knew each other, but she looked up to Emily. Emily won the national championships. So Sarah says, she loved tennis. She's from Arkansas. She says, I'm coming to Trinity. I want to win the national championships. I'm going to play. She gets here, and there's nothing. And you're saying they're not girls that can't play, and there's no coach, and there's no organized deal. So she ends up in your office, right? And everyone seems to come to Shirley's office. I avoided you like the plague. She made me go to class, and you made us go play tennis every Thursday. You were a Tuesday, Thursday class at Trinity. You were a
Yeah,
mess
we
up.
were bad.
Yeah.
We were bad.
All right,
Well, all right. When Sarah got here, we were after Emily and Becky won nationals. Then we sort of segged back to where we were before, with people playing, and with our taking them to district tournaments and so forth. But we didn't have a budget. And so I was having to solicit money from.
You use that word solicit. Is there another word you could use? It makes me a little nervous.
Oh, don't, no,
Okay, go
no,
ahead.
that's what she
She
did.
was finding money. That's
exactly what she
money.
did.
She had to go looking for money.
I'm
We
looking
call that
for money.
fundraising now in the alumni world.
I'm
right?
looking for
We're
money.
looking for money.
If you think that's a nicer
What's
word.
the second time
Well,
you
we
said
could put it
Shirley?
another
Yeah,
way,
I'm a little
Shirley. You
nervous.
twisted some arms to get it.
You are persuasive.
But the first budget we had, I remember from the student activity fund was $200. And this was for the year. And I can't remember what it was in '73, but it was.
Can I interject?
I mean,
Because
74.
I don't really
I
want
mean-
to say that, but I think it's really important because we're talking about '70s, and this is right before Title IX. Somebody, I won't name names, told me that the women's, this is probably after Title IX, budget was $10,000, and the men's was $100,000. That's about right. And when we get to the picture, I could put Billie Jean in here. You know, she won Wimbledon, she got $1,000, and Rod Laver got $100,000. I mean, we're talking about a pretty big swing there.
If
So
I
go
had
ahead, sorry.
if I had ever seen a $10,000 budget,
Yeah.
I would have been on top of the
Well,
world.
I'm not claiming my source on
ours
that.
was ours was always under 1,000.
Okay.
Okay, so in '70, then we're back to the ordinary tennis players who want to play tennis,
Right.
and we're playing these dual matches and district competitions, and we played, I think, again one time at Baylor and came back home, and the other locations where we played would always give us very nice write-ups. They would talk about the Trinity tennis team, but here nobody talked about it. And so 2 students, tennis players, came into my office, Sarah Mayo and Nancy Spencer. And they said, look, we're tired of going places and other people give us publicity and talk about a tennis team, and then we come back home and no one ever mentions it. We never see a sports writer. They never ask us anything. We want to be recognized as a tennis team. And I said, okay, there is a way to do this, and there's a right way to do this, and so let's do it the right way. The governing body for athletics here is supposed to be the Trinity Athletic Council. I said, if you would like to go make your pitch to them, I'll call and make you an appointment and I'll go with you. But I want the 2 of you to do the talking.
So good.
And they did.
For Sarah Scott,
Sarah
there was
Scott-
no problem talking.
They had
Hear
no
that,
problem
Sarah?
talking.
No problem.
They were articulate.
And
They-
passionate.
Passionate. They stated their case. And when we walked out of there, we had permission for them to be recognized as a tennis team, and we had a budget. A very small budget. I can't remember the amount, but we did have a budget. And so in '73 and, in '70 and '71 and '72, then we competed at sort of the same level we were competing before Emily and Becky came on the scene.
Okay.
Okay? In the fall of 1973, 3 students came to Trinity who were above average in tennis ability.
And why did they come?
They
Because they won nationals, so there was this sort of mystique about Trinity.
They knew about Trinity
Right.
tennis. They came to me in the fall and said there is a tournament in Dallas we would like to go to, and can we go? And so I took them. So this was Donna Stockton, Mary Ham, and Val Franta. I knew before we left that tournament that our skill level had gone up considerably. Then in January, Joanne Russell enrolled, and so we had a team of 4 very highly skilled players. In February, we were invited to a tennis tournament in Arizona, and where the California players would be, and some of the other top-ranked players in the United States. I wanted to go. I wanted to take them, but we didn't have enough money. We had enough money to go to nationals. We had enough money to do some dual matches, but we didn't have enough money to fly to Arizona. And so I went to my department chair and tried to get money, and he said, I have no money for women's tennis. Go to the
You don't have to name his name.
Dr. McClay, Dr. McClay.
Dr. McClay.
So then I went to the athletic. He said, go talk to the athletic director. Well, I don't remember the men's athletic director, but
There
we had a men's athletic director.
But no women's.
No, oh no. So I went and talked with him, told him the situation, and I said I would like to get enough money to go to Arizona, and he actually laughed. He said, you know,
You can tell us his name too.
I don't remember his
Who's
name.
the guy who smoked a cigar?
I don't
It
remember.
wasn't
his-
Gene Norris.
No.
I don't remember
Okay,
his name,
let's-
and that's
let's
all.
let
And
him
that's
be
all right.
nameless.
He can
He can be
he
nameless.
can be nameless.
Because he said no to us.
He said
Well,
We
no.
haven't had a lot of no's
That's
yet.
what
He said no. And so I said to him, do you mind if I go talk to the business manager? And he said, no, I don't mind, but it won't do you any good. And I said, okay. So I made an appointment and spoke with Durwood Hawthorne,
Thank God for Durwood
the business
Hawthorne.
manager,
Sure.
who very, very nice, and he had a sympathetic ear. And I told him, you know, we have some talent here, and I would really like to take them to this tournament because we have national possibilities. And I said, if we go to this tournament and do well, we can get seeded at nationals and possibly win nationals. And nationals are in June, and I don't have the budget to cover that and this, but I have to send in the fees in May. Now, if you'll give me permission to take the nationals out of next year's budget, then I can use this year's budget and go to Arizona, which he said that would be all right. And so we did. We went. The Arizona tournament had an A division and a B division, and we won both divisions. Therefore, when we go to nationals in June at Auburn, then we do get some seeds. I'll tell you very quickly about nationals. Our four top players, Donna Stockton, Mary Ham, Joanne Russell, and Val Franta, went. They did very well at first. On Wednesday, we had a very bad day, lost a lot of matches, and it looked like we were mathematically out. On Wednesday, I had given up. On Wednesday night, Donna and Val came into my room and said, look, they had put the pen to it, and we just had to win everything that we played from then on. And UCLA had to lose most everything that they played. At the end of the day, Wednesday, we were 4 points down from UCLA. Thursday was a good day. We won everything we played. At the end of the day, Thursday, we were down 2 points from UCLA. And on Friday, Donna and Mary won semifinals, which sealed the national championship for the Trinity women.
Wow.
It was by far the most exciting and nail-biting day I've ever spent with Trinity tennis.
Oh, wow. That's a great story.
And you know,
Tell us
Lynn
that
Perry,
story.
our friend Lynn Perry, adds, love hearing the history of Trinity women's tennis. Thank you to all the Trailblazers, to the three of you, Trinity proud, Lynn Perry.
Well, Lynn,
Thank you,
Perry,
Lynn.
Lynn, thank you for
May I add
being
one
Lynn
more
for
from
Larry.
Betty Ryder. Hugs to you all.
Betty
What a
Ryder.
great walk down memory lane. Texting with TK says hi to you all. Thank you, Betty and TK. All right.
Yes, and thank you. We can't thank our alumni enough, though. We wouldn't. I mean, we are able to provide our student athletes with a wonderful experience. I just got an email from our I wouldn't call them our arch rival, but Emory. They're always tops in the nation. They invited us to their tournament. They gave us the best possible matches with
wow.
our alumni,
That's
like
good.
Lynn and Mary McLean that support us. We are able to give our student athletes today wonderful, wonderful experiences. So go ahead to get back to your nationals.
I need one more PS.
You go.
One more PS. About 2 weeks after we came back from the national, the conversation, the total conversation at nationals was Title IX.
Oh, right, of
Title
course.
IX had just been enacted where it was now legal for women to receive scholarships. So 2 weeks after we got back from nationals, I made an appointment with Dr. Wimpress, the president of Trinity, and asked him if he were familiar with Title IX. Yes, he had heard about it. And I told him that by the fall, we would be playing schools with women on athletic scholarships. And we had just brought a national championship back to Trinity by 4 women who had chosen to come to Trinity, who had paid their own tuition, room and board, and were qualified Trinity students. We could go out and recruit somebody tomorrow and give them scholarships and bring in people. But I thought the right thing to do would be give scholarships to these 4 students who had just brought home a championship. And he thought about it for a few seconds, and he picked up the phone and called Durwood Hawthorne.
Durwood again.
Durwood.
I remember him.
Good
I
man.
remember
Business
Durwood.
manager. Good man.
He said, can you come up to the office? And so Durwood came up to the office, and he said, can you find me X number of dollars for 4 women's scholarships for fall semester? And Durwood said, yes. And so at that point, he told me I could call the players and tell them they would all be on scholarship for the remaining 3 years of their tenure at Trinity. And I said, well, they've paid their deposits already. May I tell them they get their deposits now?
Well, there you go, Shirley.
Well, you know what?
He said, yes, you may.
That's great.
So I went back to the office and called them and told them that they would be on full athletic scholarships their remaining 3 years.
Do you know what that did? It freed up money for Val Franta to open a never-ending account at Alma's Pharmacy. Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I don't want to get stuck in the 70s and 80s. Even those were sort of our glory years. I mean, can you just tell a little bit about your coaching experience? Again, there's so many unsung heroes from the 80s. I mean, we had these wonderful teams in the 70s, and almost many of our national champions came through there.
I
but
mean, the 80s were exciting, really, because we had scholarships.
we beat
you know.
Stanford. That's all we care about.
And, you know, yeah, we beat Stanford, we beat UCLA, we beat USC, we beat Florida and
And
Georgia.
we always
and
beat Texas.
We
I mean,
always beat Texas.
And we never played A&M because they weren't any good. So.
Yes.
Sorry, no, I'm just kidding.
No, don't go
I'm
there.
just kidding.
That's not right.
They're good now.
That's not right, no. But the 80s was exciting because there was a lot of competition, and the competition was getting better. And as with anything, whether it's tennis or business, the more competition that you have, the better everybody gets. Everybody benefits from the competition. And so, you know, as you climb the ladder with your team, Gretchen, and the kids get better, and the competition gets better, they're going to get better. And that's really the key. But the 80s was unique because the admission standards at Trinity kept going up.
Right.
And it got harder and harder to get players in. Even though academically they were qualified, they spent all their time working on tennis and not time on the academics, so their SAT scores weren't above the 1250, which was the minimum at that time. And so that kind of curtailed the recruiting a little bit. So I had to, instead of going and saying, what is your ranking, I'd have to go, what did you make on your SAT?
Right.
And so you had to open a conversation that way because there was no point in going and recruiting a qualified player if they weren't a qualified student.
And I think I've got this segue into the next era, which, you know, I did put Dr. Calgard's picture in here, but you know, we were very, 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 very angry with him when we lost our Division One.
Oh yeah, there was a sleep in on the
Yeah.
the courts.
And we need a
yeah.
whole nother webcast about that. But I do feel that, you know, the Division III era has been wonderful for Trinity, and you know, at first it was very hard for a lot of those of us that were involved in the D1. But it really does fit Trinity, and our students, my students, are, you know, they're studying for their MCAT. They're not playing tennis. I mean, we played a tennis tournament every weekend,
Right.
and they're doing internships and they're studying for their MCATs, and they're, you know, doing rounds
Caroline
in hospital.
Kutash, an engineer with General
she's,
GE.
what kind of, she's a, I don't even know what she is, but I mean, they're already going on to doing these wonderful things, and it really does fit the Trinity
It's very
model.
difficult for a small school because the number of students and
Mm-hmm.
the quality of those students. It's like an expansion draft in baseball.
Right.
As you expand it out, it dilutes the quality, and so the bigger you get, the more diluted your quality. The smaller the entity, the more compact, the more qualified that the people are that are involved in it.
Yeah,
And
and-
so you have to look at it from that perspective. And I think it would be very difficult today for Trinity to compete with UCLA and Stanford.
And we don't. And we are competing. I call it the Smarty Pants League. I mean, we're playing Emory, and we're playing Claremont, and we're playing Pomona. I mean, we are playing these quality students. And my girls, you know, it was, you know, Coach, we have finals and we don't have time to practice. I go, do you think they're practicing at Williams? Do you think they're practicing at Pomona? They're studying just like you. And I really feel like it's an even playing field, and it does fit Trinity. And
Yeah, it does fit.
It has been a hard transition, but you know, we've got people on board, and we're all
well,
chugging in
I
the
mean,
same
it's
direction
difficult
now.
when you're at a level here and all of a sudden you're Division II, now
Right.
you're Division III. And you go, okay, well, what's the difference? The difference isn't the quality of the person.
Right.
It's
Nancy
just the
Webster
ama-
calling in and telling us she loves tennis.
Yeah, I mean, it's the amount of time that you have to dedicate to it.
Right.
And these kids today, they don't have time.
No, they're going to be
Yeah,
airplane pilots,
they don't have
and
time.
they're going to
I
be
mean,
doing all kinds
yeah,
of things.
Yeah.
Let me add something about Division III, if
Please,
I may.
James.
The women's champion. Thank you. Women's championship.
We're all of a sudden polite
No,
now. Go ahead.
The Trinity women's team won the NCAA Division III championship in 2000. In fact, the Tiger women and men won the title on the same day in different states, and both were coached by Trinity Hall of Famer and director of tennis Butch Newman, who is still going strong, I might add.
Awesome.
Well, we have just very little amount of time. I just want to tell you, those of you that are interested, we are competing at the highest possible level. We got up to ranked 12 this year, which is our highest since I've been here. And we are out in the community doing wonderful things. We're recycling tennis balls. We're teaching the youth. We started Tiger Tacos, free tacos for the first 50 students to come. We just really want to help grow tennis in San Antonio and bring the community back like the old days, which brings us to October 5th. James Hill, Mary Hamwritings, Larry Gottfried are going into our Trinity Sports Hall of Fame. James, what do you think about that?
Well, I was shocked when they told me, by the way, but that's okay. What does that say?
So was I.
Betty Wright, when will the schedule be available, Betty Wright? Hang on, Betty. We'll get it. Hang on.
here,
Just
get
hang.
here.
We'll get it, Betty. Well, I was absolutely shocked, but I'm excited to go in with some good friends, too. It's going to be at halftime of the Trinity football game versus Austin College. Game is at 1 p.m. on October 5th. It's at halftime. Then afterward, there's a reception for all of us honorees, if I may. I hate that's
Wonderful.
kind of
We'll
weird
be
to say.
there. We'll
Can I
all
tell
be there.
you? Can I tell you who's in it, please? Be quick. Larry Gottfried, also Mary Hamwritings, Rod Sussman from the men's team. Y'all remember Rod Sussman,
sure.
63?
Yeah.
And Amy Barrett Adams from volleyball, Tara Rhodey Anderson from women's basketball, Kristen Schumann-Bear, four-time Division III women's track and field high jump champion,
Cool.
Josh Card from men's soccer, Bo Edwards from baseball and football, my friend Becky Geyer, the women's basketball coach of the 2003 women's basketball team, Larry Gottfried, Mary Hamwritings, Rod Sussman, Jeremy Urban the current
Yay.
football coach
Cool.
and former All-American, and the 2007 Mississippi Miracle Play of the Trinity
cool.
football team. That was a doozy, let me
So
tell you.
yes, tennis fans, please come back October 5th to honor Mary and James and Larry and Rod. And then the other thing we want to keep you put on your date of your calendars, April 3rd and 4th. We're revamping the reunion. I have to say, my favorite memories of Trinity are from the reunion, meeting all the, I don't want to say old players, all the former players, meeting Karen Sussman.
Can I give you one thing?
Oh, don't say I stole the pinata.
Well, that
From that
too.
country
Yeah,
club.
I
I gave
forgot
it
about
back.
that. Chuck McKinley was at one, and it was at the San Antonio Country Club. And after it was over, they bid on the players. And so Chuck, who was playing in the reunion, bought 3 of the girls to play
Uh-oh.
with. He bid on 3 of the girls to play
That
with.
doesn't
And
sound
I go, Chuck, why did you buy 3 girls? He said they were really cute.
Well, I'm not sure if we're going to. I'm not sure we're going to do all that again. But we
I'm
are
glad.
We're planning
I'm
on
glad.
having a really good time and getting everybody back. So please put that on your calendar.
We do have a couple of minutes. Carrie Ehlers, Carrie Sterling. Quick hi to Emily, 76 to 80. Fun to see you on the screen. Absolutely. And Lisa Sassano
She
Westergaard.
should be working, Lisa. You.
Hi all, love you, Flash, she says. And Betty Ryder, thrilled to see the reunion coming back. And hi to my friend Jordan Riedel again, too. Okay.
Well, we're so grateful for everyone that was able to be here. Shirley, thank you for your stories. I know those stories are not known by this current generation of players, and even some of those that were here, I don't think people remember. And there's so many administrators that helped that are sort of forgotten. But you know, I heard stories about Coach Potter, you know, getting people out of their PE classes to come play matches, and Libby Johnson, the softball coach, that she was instrumental in bringing people in. Dennis Alberg was instrumental in getting me back to Trinity, and I couldn't be here without him and some of the alumni support. Just in all the coaches, you know, coaches are very rarely thanked. So I want to take the opportunity to thank you, Emily, for saying,
pleasure.
Stanford, the grass is not always greener at UCLA and Stanford, the other schools
No,
I was looking
no.
at. And I thank my teammates. They're still my dear, dear friends, and I would not have come here without Louise and Maggie, and I think it was Michelle Luntz took me to
Michelle
Sonny's by the
Luntz, oh.
park for my recruiting
I'm
trip.
sure
And
she
probably
did.
that's why
Bombay
I can-
Bicycle
And
Club, too. We
Bombay.
gotta
I
say
probably wouldn't be here without the Bombay Bicycle Club. too.
Butch Newman wanted me to ask a question. First,
Okay.
Butch Newman sends his regards to you and Shirley and to Emily, to Shirley and Emily, and also he has a question for you,
Okay.
Gretchen.
Uh-oh.
You were, of course, involved in the D1 days at Trinity. So how has the transition been for you to coach on the D3 level? And are you as happy to be here as we are to have you back? And I love that.
Butch is always Mr. Silvertongue. Butch, thank you for helping me get here. I wouldn't be here without Butch and Emily and the alumni and Dennis. But I'm very grateful to be at Trinity. I love what I do every day. It doesn't feel like I'm working. It's hard to know if I'm playing or working, and I am so grateful. To the alumni, I can't tell you enough how much fun it is to contact my former friends and say, hey, remember our days at Trinity, and think about these kids. They're going out into the world, and there's not a better investment you could make than in a Trinity student. These students are going out. Caroline, our number one player, I mean, her senior project was to take water down to the border to help, you know, these people that are stuck in the desert, and, you know, is now some type of engineer at GE in Cincinnati. I can't even
Wow.
jet propulsion engineer or something.
Right.
These are the students you're supporting when you're sending them to Atlanta to get our butts
Yeah,
to,
I mean,
to
we
play
had,
Emory and to play Claremont. We're not quite at their level yet, but your support will truly help us give these women an opportunity to have the chutzpah to go to the administrators and ask, hey, can I have a tennis team? Olga, you come, and you would say no. You went to the president of the university and say, find us money. I mean, these are the type of women that are coming to Trinity, and I just thank you so much for your support of them.
And I want to mention our latest All-Americans on the women's team, our favorite twins, Zoe Caffin and Mary Caffin. And on the men's team,
made
Wilson
our own.
Lambeth and Jordan Pitts. So I think that may about do it. So let me tell you about what's coming up next, if I may, Gretchen.
We're done.
Thank you for joining today's webinar. Ladies, you too. Also Celine from the Alumni Office and Taylor and Bailey from Tiger Network. The next webinar is scheduled for July 24th. It's on a very different topic: interpersonal communication in the age of social media. It will be a live conversation with Erin Sumner, Associate Professor of Human Communication. So July 24th, go Tigers!
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you all.
Thank you.